Welcome to the city of the unwritten. A city that's given so much. A city of people who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. A city of makers, entrepreneurs, musicians, artists. A city of laughter, memories, and people who will welcome others in with a cup of heartwarming handmade coffee. A city of people, young and old, working together. People who explore, live, and grow together. But what makes this place special? Being listed year after year as one of the best places to raise a family. Maybe because we have a community recognized for its safe neighborhoods and revered for its low unemployment. A city where adventure is everywhere you look, where you can pioneer your own story. We've opened a new page to write on for the generations ahead. Welcome to Bismarck. Come write your story.
Well, hello. Had to make sure you're awake. Good morning. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. How's everybody doing this morning? All right. Good. Well, my name's Evan Anderson. I get to be your MC this morning. I'm really excited. This is going to be fun. It's great to see all of you here. Thank you for being here. You can see we've got the fun meter pegged already. I don't know what that is, but we're 3 out of 3 going here, so that's good. So let's jump in. Anybody maybe see some new faces here? Anybody that has never been to a 1 Million Cups before? Okay, no. Oh, so we got a group of veterans. Nice. Well, welcome back then. Thank you for being here. I'm still going to tell you why we're here and what we're doing, but it's in the script. So we are a free weekly program. We do have some people that haven't been here in a while, though, so welcome back. Free weekly program where we put somebody that's doing something interesting, neat in our community. We put them on this stage, let them tell their story. A little bit mixing it up a little bit today. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's really intended to be a two-way conversation. So we hear from these folks, and then we put a big mug mic in Ross's hands, and he runs it around, and we get to interact then with the speakers and ask some good questions and have some good conversations. So really the big takeaway here is, can we change the face of our startup community over 1 million cups of coffee? And we are almost through our 12th year of doing this here in Bismarck Mandan. So that's a lot of Wednesday mornings that we put together, and that a lot of you have attended, many of those. So again, thank you, and thanks to those joining us on the Facebook Live this morning as well. Okay, we have 3 pages actually of companies that support what we do here. These folks are providing maybe a few dollars to help us rent the theater, get the coffee, those kinds of things, but also letting their employees take the time to put this together. Putting together an event every Wednesday is kind of a daunting task, especially for a group of volunteers that have other things in their lives going on. So if you see these folks, please thank them. Let them know that their support is appreciated. 3 pages. That's great. And there's always room for more. So, if you know somebody that wants to support this, just find one of us with the name tags. Yes. I'm going to go back one. A new sponsor? A secret new sponsor. Okay. Oh, now I've done it. Oh, Sanford Home Care. That's right. Brand new. Thank you. I think we should give them a round of applause. Yes. Thank you, Janya. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. That is fantastic. Okay. Amen. So, again, we are going to do question and answer, although we're going to do it a little bit different today since we're having a conversation about AI. You can certainly ask questions, but we kind of want to hear from you too, or hear your thoughts or your reactions to some of the things that Faith is saying or some of the conversations we're having up here. So put your thinking caps on, and you can query AI if you feel you need to, but I'd prefer the questions come out of your head. And so community announcements. I think before we jump into the community announcements for this week, I want to hark back to last week's community announcements a little bit, and actually last week's speaker. How many of you here were here last week? We had Dan Belinsky with Canticle. Who went to the movie? All right, good. Well, shame on the rest of you. It is still showing at the Grand. Go. They sold out all 4 premiere shows at the Grand on Friday and Saturday night. I just spoke with somebody that said it was packed yesterday as well. A fantastic feature-length film made right here in Bismarck, North Dakota, about the Hazel Miners story, which is a 100-and-some-year-old story now, but very steeped in our kind of in this community. So go see the movie. It was awesome. I not only went, I got the T-shirt. So so go see it. It was fantastic. And another announcement that we posted last week was for the Dakota Music Crawl, which was also the North Dakota Music Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I don't know, anybody go to that? Okay, yeah, several of us. Also, fantastic. So if you ever catch yourself saying there's nothing to do in this town, you are so wrong. This was a super, super fun, was it Saturday, Sunday? What day was that, Janya? Sunday? Sunday, yeah. Wow, time flies. So it was fantastic. So they inducted Richard Torrance, Chuck Suki, the Blenders, and Skitch Henderson into the North Dakota Hall of Fame. And they also did the music crawl, which six different bars in Mandan participated, and there was a live band, somebody performing live in each of those 6 places. So you went in, you got a free beer, and you got to listen to great live music, and it all ended at a concert at Dykeshorn Park. Really, really an awesome thing, and it's going to happen again next year. So next year when we put that announcement up, remember we had this conversation, and show up. It was really, really amazing. So, all right, with that, now we can talk about new community announcements. Okay, it is National Pumpkin Spice Day. Did you get some pumpkin spice in your coffee this morning? We had two different pumpkin spices out there for you today. So get your celebration going. And we had 2 of them today that were both kind of cool. So the other one is Random Acts of Poetry Day. And so we have a random act of poetry.
Now, those of you who know me, don't be scared. I didn't write this poem. What I thought is, in honor of today's theme, I got onto ChatGPT and I said, ChatGPT, I would like a poem for National Random Acts of Poetry Day in the style of Dr. Seuss. Here we go. I'll try to do my best. Oh, look. Old eyes, I have to take my glasses off. Okay. Oh, wake up, get ready. Today is the day when rhymes start to ripple and dance on their way. It's Random Acts of Poetry. Zing, what a treat. You might find a stanza right under your seat. So be sure to look for that. A haiku in hallways, a sonnet in shoes, a limerick that laughs while it's spreading the news. There's verse in your veggie, a rhyme in your rice, and odes in your oatmeal, which taste rather nice. So scribble a couplet, go drop it with cheer, on doors or on desks or an elephant's ear. No rules and no reason, just rhyme and play. That's Random Acts of Poetry Day.
Thank you, Janya. Tyler.
Good morning. This week at the Bismarck Public Library, we have the used book sale going on. So this happens twice a year at the library. Starts tomorrow, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. It's in the meeting room area at Veterans Public Memorial Library. Kind of interesting, we sell books by the pound. There's also DVDs and other things for sale. So if you've ever wanted to buy literature by the pound, this is your opportunity. These books, some of it is inventory turn from the library, but a lot of these are donated by community members that folks can donate books year-round to be sold in this used book sale. Also, Friends of the Public Library is part of the fundraising arm with the library there. We have a big bathroom renovation project going on that the library is raising funds for right now. So the funds from this book sale will likely go to that project. If you show up for this, you also learn more about what those new bathrooms are going to look like. I know that might not be the most exciting project, but it's very necessary, and it's a great third space in our community. So please check it out this Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the Bismarck Public Library.
By the pound. So War and Peace probably costs more than the cover price then. Yeah. All right. The Mandan Business Pitch Challenge. Okay, that's October 15th. That is coming right up. Oh. Whew. Thanks, Noah.
I snuck it in there myself last night. Hello, everyone. Noah Vroman, Chamber EDC. I don't know if you recall a couple months ago, we were up here asking for help with getting applicants. Thank you. We got a full slate of applicants, and now it's time for our finalist pitch night. So in 2 weeks, October 15th, we'll have a social with appetizers opening at 5 and presentations at 5:30. And then the judges will convene, and then we'll have a finalist that wins the pitch challenge. So that will be at Central Station over in Mandan. So if you have the chance, we have 4 great businesses. We'd love to have your support and coming out and supporting them. The QR code will take you to a register site, and that will just give Mandan a number of people, number to get appetizers and drinks for. So thank you all for your support so far, and if you could come out, that'd be great.
Thank you, Noah. Yeah, there was a little bit of a hiatus on the Mandan Pitch Challenge back when it was happening before. I know we've attended a number of these, and it's really a great way to support the entrepreneurs, support the program. So if you have an opportunity, please show up. It's fun. It's fun to see what's going on. Okay, Ben.
Hey, we have a webinar coming up. The Good Kids always finds that it's just as important to know your target audience as it is to know things about your own business. And so, so we have a webinar kind of going over how you can really learn more about your target audience and, close the gap there, kind of join them together. So.
Thank you, Ben. These guys have some unbelievable content too. I mean, just so well laid out, so useful. So thank you, Ben. Okay. Oh, Janya.
Not in rhyme. We have the Capitol Gallery, which is just around the corner on 4th, which is a beautiful gallery. If you haven't been there, I suggest you go walk around. It's free to look at the beautiful art, so don't be afraid. Wander in, featuring local and regional artists, and they've got a show right now that is fabulous. But I'm here to talk about coming up on October 16th is our annual, this will be our 8th annual gala. And it includes things like there is a social with some lovely appetizers. Just picture you get gussied up like you're going to prom, okay? But not over the top, but just like you're going to prom. And then you go and you sip champagne or you sip wine. You look at some beautiful art that's sitting around. You chit chat. You could talk about your yacht and stuff just to pretend. It's just kind of fun, you know. And then we have a really nice sit down dinner. And then there's a live auction element of it and also a silent auction element. And a lot of it is a focus on art because that is our mission at the Capitol Gallery. But we also have some other, if art isn't your jam, we have some other really fun experiences in the silent auction piece. But it's a fun night. There's a lot of laughter, great camaraderie. So if you've been looking for a fall event to get gussied up for, I know it's on our calendar every year. I'd love to see you there, and the QR code will take you there. Thanks.
Thank you, Janya. Also, just along the lines of cool stuff in our community, if you haven't been to Capitol Gallery, it's unbelievable the quality of the work that you can gander at there. So check it out if you haven't. Fantastic. And then this event is always a highlight. Okay, I think that's all of the announcements we've got. Anybody else have anything before we jump into AI here? All right. Well, with that, we've actually had Faith on stage not terribly long ago talking about her business, Esper Collective. But she's going to talk to us today a little bit about AI. Again, be thinking about some good conversation points that you might bring up when she's finished, and we'll have a conversation. We'll figure out this whole AI future thing, and then we'll tell the whole world, and they'll be very appreciative of that. So, Faith, come on up. There you go.
and I am wearing orange today because it is the first day of October. October is the best month. A little biased because it's my birthday month, and I really love pumpkins. So I was really excited that it's also Pumpkin Spice Day. So I'm encouraging the leaves to turn orange faster wearing this. Today we're going to talk about AI, though. And my goal, impossible goal, is to teach you all the things that I'd like you to know about AI in the next 15 to 20 minutes. So I'm going to fail. So to Evan's point, be thinking of questions, be thinking of discussion points that you'd like me to dive into a little bit deeper. But there's 3 fundamental components we're going to go through today. The first is the premise. What actually is AI, and what is it good at now? Second, we're going to talk about its potential. Where is it going? What is next? Finally, we're going to talk about what are some of the pitfalls of AI. So that being said, a quick glossary. First, how many of you have heard of AI? Hands. Okay, I don't see anyone who hasn't raised their hands, so that's good. How many of you could define AI? Thankfully, you have a little glossary up here. Okay, how many of you would feel comfortable standing up here saying, AI is this, AI is good at this, I use AI for my business in these ways? Couple people, that's awesome. You're welcome to come. You're welcome to come. All right, so I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of some of the key terms that we're going to talk about in this presentation so we can all have the same baseline knowledge. First, AI is artificial intelligence. What I want to particularly highlight is that the artificial part of that sentence. The goal, and if we think about the end goal for all of these researchers creating these systems, it is to create intelligence that is not our own, not plants or animals. Yes, plants have intelligence, right? Artificially create intelligence. Now, some of them also want to create super intelligence, which is intelligence that is even greater than our own. They're pouring a lot of money into that right now. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. Second, LLM, which is a fancy way of saying large language model, which is a fancy way of saying they have taken thousands and millions and billions of text data points, pretty much the entire internet, dump it into a system. What are the patterns that emerge? What does this mean? How can this be analyzed? Third, Gen AI. So a lot of the headlines that you'll see say, oh, AI is going to take jobs. AI is doing this. AI is doing that. Well, AI refers to a lot of different systems with a lot of different capabilities. Gen AI is a specific subset of that. Generative AI refers to AI that creates something. So Janya read us an excellent poem written by an AI model. That is generative. There is plenty of AI that is not generative. So if you think about, the fundamental capabilities of AI on analysis, that's not generative AI. Generative AI is, most common example, chatbots. So if you interact with something like a ChatGPT, that is going to be your classic case. Algorithm, we're going to talk a lot about algorithms. This is just a fancy way of saying math on the computer. We also have agentic AI. Wow, that's a new one. Agentic AI refers to the AI making decisions and executing on multi-step processes. So when you approach a chatbot right now, typically you say, oh, can you create me a poem? And then it will have an output, and it will create you a poem. But it won't say, oh, you know what, let me create this poem, and then because you're an author and you want to publish this on your social media, let me post it on your social media for you, let me create a caption for you, let me do this, right? So the AI can do those things if you ask it to. The AI agent, or agentic AI, is going to be able to take those actions on your behalf if you let it. And finally, NLP refers to natural language processing, and that is how those chatbots understand language, how they process it. They don't understand language how we understand language. They understand language in terms of math. So break that down a little bit more, but let's talk more about the premise. So I'm going to take you back to 1951. And in 1951, there was a quote, if you can't read it, I think it is probable, for instance, that at the end of the century, it will be possible to program a machine to answer questions in such a way that it will be extremely difficult to guess whether the answers are being given by a man or by the machine. This was 1951. And this is predicting ChatGPT and a lot of the technologies that we're using today. So these are not necessarily net new things. These are not things that came up out of the blue. The meteoric rise of something like ChatGPT seems unprecedented. And it seems like, oh, there's this technology and it's so new and it's so cool. However, there is a long history of development to these things, and there are a lot of predictions. And this was by Alan Turing on BBC in 1951. How many of you think he was correct? Yeah, lots of hands. All right, so what is an AI system fundamentally at the core, so that we can build our intuition for what it's good at, so we can understand how to use it? It is really good at predicting the future based on the past. And so AI is fundamentally about prediction. And the reason it's about prediction is, if you were here when Dr. Terry Pilling gave his excellent talk on the math behind AI, is because it's recognizing patterns, because math is fundamentally about patterns. So let me give you an example. Imagine that you do not know what a horse is. I know it's hard to imagine something that you clearly know what it is. But imagine you had never seen a horse before, you didn't know, you knew what a unicorn was, but you'd never seen a horse before. Okay, so I give you a book, and it has 100 pictures of horses in it. And I say, this is a horse. Look at all of these 100 pictures, this is a horse. This is a horse from different angles. This is a horse when it's galloping. This is a horse when it's trotting. And then, the next day, I take you to my stable. Unfortunately, I do not have a stable, but we're imagining I have a stable. I take you to my stable, and I show you a horse, and I say, what is this? Before I'd showed you that book, you might have said, well, it kind of looks like a unicorn, but it's missing some important components. However, now that I've showed you this book, and you've seen 100 pictures of horses, you can probably make a good guess that that is indeed a horse, even though you have never seen this particular horse before. We apply this logic a ton in our daily lives without even really realizing it. There's a cat. Imaginary cat. I'm not hallucinating things. There's a cat. How do I know it's a cat? I've never seen this cat before. I've never met this cat. I'm walking down the street and I see a cat. But I'm predicting, using my human capabilities, that that's a cat. And so the goal of a lot of these models is to do a very similar thing with the model. Input millions of pictures of cats, and then say, here's a picture of a cat, here's a picture of a dog. Is this picture a cat or a dog? And have it be able to correctly classify. So that is fundamentally what AI systems are and what they're good at. So good news, if you do not like math, AI is a friend, because it's really good at recognizing patterns, it's really good at handling large amounts of data, it's really good at predicting trends out of those large amounts of data, financial modeling, doing things that are really repetitive. You can automate those processes using these technologies, right? So if you have a standard pattern like this pattern can be described mathematically. That's a perfect use case for AI. Because this pattern is identical across, it can be described by AI. That's going to help you out with the function that you need. Likewise, if you're looking for an analysis or a pattern on a trend, you have this huge data set, and it would take you forever to go through and try and see if there was patterns or trends or micro-analyses, or maybe every February for the last 5 years, your business has done really well, and you didn't realize that until you had something that had powerful processing capabilities like AI. Now, how do we actually use this? So I took a look at some of the most common industries in North Dakota, and that being oil and gas, agriculture, renewables, manufacturing, tourism, data centers, and aviation. And I came up with an AI use case that is already providing concrete value for one of those industries. And so based on our understanding of AI so far, what are these use cases? Real quick, predictive maintenance. This is where you are able to identify, based on past failure mechanism data, when your machine is likely to fail, and then schedule maintenance before it fails so that it never has to fail. AI systems can go so far as this part is probably going to fail in the next 3 months. I'm noticing it takes 1 month for it to get here. So I'm going to order it so that it's here at least 1 month before it's predicted to fail, and I'm going to have a tech switch it out 2 weeks before it's predicted to fail, and then my machine is never going to fail, and all that really expensive downtime and trying to fix the problem and waiting a month for this part, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen, and no one's going to have to remember to do all of those things because the AI system is going to take care of that. Second, agriculture. Real-time actionable crop data. So imagine you are able to see every part of a field and its unique moisture, subset, content, all the insects that are attacking this particular part of the crop as opposed to this part, and you're able to take actions based on the data. That is something that AI can help you with. Third, for renewables, anomaly detection. So say you have a huge solar field, and a shadow is being cast by a building, or a shadow at a certain point of day is blocking this, the way that it's rotated is not rotated optimally. It's detecting that. It's detecting that, oh, something is covering this that wasn't expected to be there, so it can flag that to you so that you can go check it out. It can't yet solve that problem for you unless it's something like rotated a little bit and you have the sensors set up, but it can identify those problems. Fourth, manufacturing generative design. So there are a lot of large manufacturing companies already using this capability, but it is essentially running millions of scenarios across, say, a turbine fan blade. What is the optimal configuration that is going to give us the highest amount of efficiency? You could think of all of those ideas yourself, or you could have an AI model run millions of simulations across all the possible data points, across all the possible situations in which this fan blade would be used, and say, this is the best design of all of those for the factors that you've optimized for, of course. Tourism, hyper-personalized suggestions. We're all aware of these. Starbucks knows your order, all of those sorts of things. You can do that at an increasingly granular level. It gets kind of creepy. Data centers, AI-powered security. You are able to understand where, again, components are likely to fail. You're able to understand if there is a threat. For example, if you're seeing an increased amount of activity in this server bay, what might be causing that? Is that something to be concerned about? Is there a risk there? That can flag to you. Your team can handle those threats, maybe even more quickly and more proactively than they would have before. And finally, in aviation, you see a lot of airlines already doing this. Wind pattern forecasting helps you predict delays, helps you suggest alternative routes so that you have less turbulence, ideally. As clear sky turbulence increases, I'm sure we've all been on planes lately that have been unexpectedly turbulent. And so being able to forecast the wind based on these AI models can be really helpful. So these are not in the premise component, because these are all actually current AI use cases. But let's talk a little bit about what some of the potential could be. AI everywhere. We all have AI agents. These AI agents are able to do everything from, I'm running out of my vitamins that I regularly take, so they are proactively ordering me these vitamins and reminding me to take these vitamins at the prescribed times that I've suggested they remind me of, right? Everything from the mundane of life to the way that we run our businesses, we run our lives. AI agents taking care of all of these things. AI agents on customer service, AI agents on, right? You get the picture. However, the most transformative, life-saving capabilities of AI that I want everyone to be aware of are not necessarily the generative AI capabilities. Chatbots are awesome, they can be really helpful, they can be great for efficiency, but are they going to save your life? And we'll talk a little bit more about this in the pitfall section, but probably not. However, if I tell you that an AI system can predict that cancer is forming in your body before a doctor can, that has the potential to save your life. There's a company in Bismarck, Bench 7, who's doing this with dental work, right? So they came on stage earlier this year to talk about their capabilities, and essentially they're able to use AI detection for cavities, for other problems that are occurring in your mouth. And because they're able to use massive amounts of data that no dentist could feasibly handle millions of cases over the course of their career, right? So they're able to learn from the best practices of every dentist out there who has annotated all of these things, and then the AI system can suggest, oh wait, you might have missed this thing because it's very emerging. But what if we tackle this emerging thing before it becomes a huge problem, right? Similarly for cancer scans. So an AI model can read through millions of annotated by doctors scans and start to understand mathematically what a tumor looks like in every stage. From the very first, this is just a tiny clump of cells that probably a doctor wouldn't flag. Maybe they're tired, maybe they're stressed, maybe they just didn't see it because they're running through a million scans and they didn't have time. But the AI is saying, hey, this might be cancer. Do you want to take a second look? The AI isn't diagnosing you with the cancer, isn't going to be in the room telling you you have cancer. But the AI system is suggesting to the doctor, let's take a second look. Let's think about this again. And then you know that you have it 5 months before you would have otherwise. That could save your life. That's huge. So when we talk about potential, there is a great deal of potential. However, there is a great deal of risk. And so ultimately, the biggest thing that I want you to think about is what are the implications of using these systems, okay? So when we think about school, we think about education and our students. Lots of great things. Everyone can have their very own AI tutor who never gets impatient, who never gets frustrated with them, who understands their current level of learning and is able to help them. However, if you push that entirely to the extreme and you say, all right, students should just learn with AI chatbots or AI educators because they're way better than a teacher could ever be, is that student going to learn how to operate in the quote-unquote real world? No. Is that going to impact them later down the line? Absolutely. You also have a lot of students who, because the incentive is, do the homework as quickly as possible. I have so much work I need to get done. I have to get this done. I have to get this done. I'm tired. I want to hang out with my friends. I feel like the way to be most efficient is to just have AI do all my homework. So a student is not necessarily learning. Their incentive is to do things as fast as possible. They have a tool that allows them to do it as fast as possible, but it skips over the steps where they need to learn, they need to take the time to learn the skills. It's very different than someone 15 years into their career who's able to say, well, I've done this for 15 years myself, so I know, hey, I'd prefer not to spend my time doing this, so I'm gonna have AI help me out with this, help me make more efficient, right? But you have to learn the skills first before you can delegate them all. Second, society, a couple things. Job and economic market. Where are we going with AI? What is the possible future set when it comes to jobs and what jobs look like in the future? So I can't predict the future, none of us can, but there are some possibilities. One, if you look at every other transformative technology that you've seen in society, you have seen that it creates more jobs than the jobs it destroys. Lots of people were very worried when they were hand shoveling the coal that when machines came along and were able to shovel the coal for them, that they would no longer have jobs. Well, they need to operate the machines. There are other jobs that are created because of this. People need to actually build the machines. And so you see mass transitions of jobs, right? Now, I've heard people say that AI could be different. It very well could, but current indications are not that AI is erasing huge swaths of the job market. It is more so that AI efficiency is running up against broken and legacy processes that we have, and we're trying to reckon with, well, where do we use what, when, where, why, how for my business, for me, for my life, right? And so we're in this kind of transitional time. When it comes to the economic market, there is a huge amount of funding that is going into these AI systems. And is the result going to be worth the amount of time and money that is being invested? If we're able to do very transformative things, yes. If we all get a little bit more efficient, no. Scams. Okay, I do need to talk about this. For most of our lives, when you saw something on TV, although people can frame it a different way, or they can say something, you could generally believe what you were seeing. That is no longer true. Deepfakes are so advanced that you can create a video of the president saying something that he didn't say, of the governor saying something that he didn't say, of your neighbor saying something that they didn't say. And you can, because social media algorithms like to amplify things that are extreme, or, oh wow, I can't believe this person said this thing, right? You can have that spread like wildfire. There are millions, relatively innocuous case on Facebook, there are millions of beautiful nature images that are not real, that many, many people are commenting under those pictures. Oh, what beautiful nature. Can't believe that this is something that's been created. I can't believe that this is something that's in our world. And it's not. It's not something that's in our world. But if you have spent your entire life believing what you see, because that's a general social contract that we accept, we can believe the things that we see, and now that's no longer the case, that's something to be aware of, right? Same thing when it comes to scams like people calling you and having the voice of some family member. It is relatively easy to spoof calls from your family member's number, and then any recording, like we talked about horses, okay? If I showed you 100 pictures of a horse and then asked you to draw a horse, you could probably draw a horse. Even if you're not that good at drawing, it would probably resemble a horse. AI model, even better at that than you. You take 50 pictures of someone from Facebook, you're able to create additional AI-generated images of them. Same with voices. You can take it off Snapchat videos, you can take it off Facebook videos, you can take it off any social media platform, YouTube, me speaking. Someone could convincingly, with just the speech that I'm giving to you guys here, create something that I did not say that would sound very, very compelling, and have them call my parents and say, you know, I'm in such trouble, I really need help, I'm struggling. And they might not know. How would they know what's real? How do we know what's real? So every time you see something, pause, is that real? That needs to become almost a second instinct. We also need to build that instinct for our children. Now, the importance of well-being, okay? So I mentioned that we were talking about chatbots, and talking to chatbots can be helpful, can also be harmful. One thing they're really good at is agreeing with you on everything. Oh, that's a great idea. That's fine if the idea is actually a great idea. If the idea is, I don't know that I am worthy of living on this planet, that's not something to be encouraging, right? And so there's actually a couple of lawsuits in play right now where families are suing chatbots and makers to say that their child may not have committed suicide if they hadn't been encouraged, or if they'd spoken to someone besides the chatbot. It's fine to have it be efficient or helpful or ask it questions, but for it to be your best friend and your only friend and the only person you're confiding in is very dangerous, especially for a child who is learning that this is how we communicate. This is our norm. And so then when you go out back into the one-on-one, in-person world with people, and people don't communicate like that, that is a huge, I must be wrong. What is happening? I don't know. People must be wrong. The chatbot is right. And that is happening, right? Final note here is on craft. So I envision potential for there to be, it specifically tagged, I created this as a human, right? This was AI generated. I created this as a human. And you can see this with clothes manufacturing, for example. People still pay large amounts of money for artisanal created clothing that's hand sewn, that's made of sustainable materials, far more expensive than something that you could get from Target, but people like to pay for that craftsman or that quality ship. And so I think what we're also all seeking is, yes, we can be efficient, but efficient for what purpose? where is that additional time going? It's great if we have additional time, but again, in service of what is a question that I want you to be asking yourself. And if it's in service of creating something yourself with your own hands to remind you that you are a human and you can do these things, that is also super key. Those are things that we are made for. And finally, in your business. So if you are using a chatbot and you are using a ChatGPT and you are inputting sensitive business information, you are probably sharing that information with more people than you would like to share it with. You can turn off model memory, but most AI models that you're currently using, you need to have a paid business account for them not to use the information you're inputting to train their models. They also have started indexing ChatGPT chats, for example. So you can Google what people have typed into these. Oh, I'm this person and I'm, very personal, very sensitive details that you may ask a real person and you may assume that you're asking a real person in this situation, but all of that sensitive information is now indexed on Google and used to train the AI model. So if there was enough of that information, potentially someone could surface that if they asked the model similar questions to what you shared, right? That's concerning. It's alarming, right? So we need to be careful that we're protecting our own confidentiality, the confidentiality of our clients. And we also, when we think about models, there's something called walled garden. And that means that it's in your own business environment. And that is what you're looking for with a model, because that is ensuring more security and privacy for yourself. I also like to think about AI in business as hiring someone. So tools are tools, and that's awesome. But if we have a tool and we overly rely on that tool, it becomes, okay, there's the tool, and then there's maybe like 10% me. Versus, I know that I don't really love doing this. So I'm going to specifically allocate this portion of my task. I'm going to delegate these things, right? So think about, in your business, what is something that I don't like doing, that I would like to free up some of my time so that I can go do something else? If I was going to hire someone to do this task, can I hire a model? And if so, I want to be providing it with the same level of detail, clarity, expectations that I would an individual that I'm hiring for this role. So that's the where and when, right? Overall, again, not prescribing answers, not giving answers, but trace out the implications. If we have no entry-level jobs because AI can do them all, will we have any middle, senior? Will we have any jobs at all 40 years into the future? No? Well, that's a future. What could we do with that future? Could we all do things that we like doing? Could we all be craftspeople? Could we all spend diligent time on things that we genuinely enjoy doing? Yes. Does life require money? Also, yes. So how do we figure out that balance of where we're going, what's going to happen next, where is regulation going? All of these big questions I want you to think through. And finally, are we going to have a Terminator scenario? My answer to this is it is highly unlikely. I cannot give you an absolute no because there is not enough data and there's not enough future prediction capabilities of any human to say that this will never ever happen. However, the current AI models do not think. They use math. They do not think. I know sometimes we read headlines or we see the output and we go, this is magic. It's math, which is also magic, yes. It's patterns, right? And we may not realize how patterned our lives are until a model is giving us back something that we go, oh, wait, how did it know, right? Oh, yeah, I guess if it's seen a million financial models, then yeah, it knows what a financial model might look like, and it knows how I might build a financial model. Because if I know the best practices for something, it probably also is drawing on some of those best practices. So again, really important to review that output as well to make sure it's not making silly errors, because it does still make quite silly errors. Like one day it'll give you a beautiful report that's like 50 pages long and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then you start going through it and you realize that every third number they've forgotten to add. Okay, amazing report, but it's going to require a lot of my time and work to correct. Now these things are getting better much more quickly. So you can see in the matter of months them become far more advanced. However, if you looked at the latest release, ChatGPT 5, that was generally considered a disappointment. Because the promise was, we have achieved this general artificial intelligence. We have achieved these things. Yet, it's still struggling to produce a map correctly labeled with the 50 states. So, in summary, is Terminator coming? Highly unlikely. Should we be afraid? Afraid doesn't help us take action. So if we are afraid, that's showing us that we care about some of these aspects, that there are things that we want to do differently, and we can choose to do those things differently, right? So let's move from the fear to the action. Let's consider these questions and use their answers to determine the actions that we take in our day-to-day. That is it for today on the flash forward, hopefully that was around 20 minutes, of what AI is, what it's going, what it's doing, and some considerations, but happy to take any questions if you have them.
All right, so we've got a few minutes to just figure this out and nail it. I think the thing I tell myself that allows me to sleep at night is that it is a shiny thing, and it's shinier than most anything I think humans have had at their disposal in the history of humankind. But I'm hoping or thinking that shiny thing will eventually lose some of its luster in some of the areas where it's maybe less useful, like your personal friend chatbot that really isn't a personal friend. It only seems like it, or this piece of artwork that was created in 13 milliseconds that looks like a master created it or whatever. And I think as humans we really innately want interactions with other humans, and you nailed it, I think, with that craft piece, that we have an appreciation for something, more appreciation for something that took somebody decades to learn and then maybe months or years to create, as opposed to somebody that just queried a GPT and there it is, share it out to all your friends and ooh, look what I did. Yeah. So my thought, and if I'm wrong, don't remember that I said this, but what I've kind of consoled myself with is that I think we're going to maybe come back a little bit to that, use it as the tool that it is really good at, because there's no doubt there are things that what I've seen. In fact, I queried Grok yesterday, asked it about the next 5 years of itself. I don't know, yeah. And it was pretty congruent with a lot of the things that you said, as far as, there was a lot of double-edged sword talk there, yeah. That, there's a lot of things it can do, there's a lot of capability, but it comes with some disruption, the coal shoveler thing. History kind of sorts that stuff out, but when you're in the thick of it, it
doesn't
can be
feel
kind
very
of messy.
comfortable.
Yeah. So.
And that appreciation for human process is something that I just want to emphasize for everyone. When we have read books historically, part of the reason we appreciate the book is because we know that it's taken someone a lot of time to write this and to create this. Part of the reason we appreciate art is because we think, wow, I really couldn't do that myself. And so there's a bit of decoupling, because then you go, well, I technically could create this myself because I could just generate it. However, you still have that respect that someone has put this time into it. And so when I think about writing content, for example, it takes someone time to read that content. And so if I have generated that content in less amount of time than it takes the person to read it, right, where is the investment on both sides? Because I am trusting a person that, they are taking their time to read something that I have taken time creating. And so I think that's an interesting dichotomy too. And that's something for us to all consider. What is that implication? What does that look like for us?
Yeah, agreed. And I think one of the things we heard in our session 2 of the 3-parter here were use cases where people are using it regularly. And something that stood out to me was the recognition, I think Arnie had said, the recognition that a lot of time needs to be spent vetting the results that you're getting. And I think there's a lot of mistakes that are happening and that will continue to happen where people get more and more trusting of that AI output, that just take it right from AI and put it out to the world or to your client or your customer or whatever the case may be, without that vetting piece. And I don't think it's there yet. So I think that's maybe in the pitfall category. Shania.
Okay, I already warned him this is coming. I have a question for Ben. Is that okay?
Question
is that
for
fair?
Ben, yeah.
Yeah. So Ben, is this a discussion you've had at the Good Kids? The fact that that AI can generate logos, could generate branding information and all of that. And I would love the conversations you all have had around. Is this a threat? Or does it still matter, with your clients that you're a human?
Or is it a tool that you guys are using to augment your human capabilities?
We don't use it for creative work, and I think there will be a day where, like, you need a logo, you can just type out, I need a logo, and you can get the logo. I think the big work comes in the thinking, just like we're talking about here, is the forethought that goes into what do I need to type in, or what do I need to tell this bot to get the right look that I need for my goals, right? So I don't know if that answers, but yeah, I think there's a lot of thought work that goes into it before we even get to the logo part. So
it's a good question. I think as we look at some of this presentation, I think we probably all saw things on those slides. It's like, oh crap, that's what I do. Or, I pretty much realized that, at least for today, I can be the MC. There might be an AI bot here next week. I don't know. But there were a lot of things, especially some of the engineering components of it. I've spent a lot of time painstakingly designing things that solve problems. And when a bot can mathematically and very iteratively, millions and millions of times, do that, part of me is really excited. It's like, wow, you can really optimize a solution like I would never be able to do. But the other part of me is like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
I was really good at that.
What roles are going to exist, right? If it's doing the work that people used to do, right? And this is the transitional periods are always the hardest. And right now we're in a big transitional period. And there are a lot of roles where it's still not really a part of them. If you are a home healthcare aide, probably not going to have a robot for quite some time that's going to be able to take care of someone and have that really in-person connection touch, right? Likewise, if you work in oil and gas, if you're a field representative and you're going place to place, if you're a realtor going and selling houses, your work is going to be less impacted right now because of AI, because it requires more of that human in-person touch. And I actually think that there's a lot of good that can come if we remember that we are humans and we really appreciate the human touch, right? And AI can amplify an existing relationship. It can help with, deepening things. But fundamentally, I personally, and I would guess many of you, would not want to solely interact with someone who is not a person, with a company, because you care and you trust the human. There's so much of trust that is built from being in person and connecting that way. And I don't want these systems and models and tools to erode that. And we've already seen that happen with things like social media. But when you look at, I just read a study about how actually the majority of the US thinks that AI will degrade critical thinking skills, emotional reasoning, in-person connection, community, etc., have negative impacts on all of those kind of really human skills going forward. And what I would love to see is the things AI is really good at, let's focus on those. But the things that are deeply human and deeply ours, that you can't have a simulation of it, so that we can allocate our time there.
That speaks directly to the question I have, Faith, is, so like we use just ChatGPT for, well, for using Zoom for meeting transcription and ChatGPT to summarize meeting notes and client follow-up, everything at the SBDC, and an incredible tool for that. But really what it's allowed us to do is be more present in our
Yes.
client meetings, because we're not writing notes, having to worry about, all right, if I go down this rabbit hole with the client, that means I'm going to have to do the follow-up work on that, and I might not want to do that. So, but now it's really nice just to know we can go down those rabbit holes with a client, because this is all transcribed. The meeting summary is going to be fantastic, and I will have the bandwidth to follow up on those things because we've saved so much time with these tools.
Yes.
What's confusing to me is I understand it's doing math, but it seems much better at synthesizing qualitative information than quantitative. And like our wheelhouse is financial projections, cash flow projections, and that still requires us to do because AI hasn't figured that out yet, or at least any tools that we've found that can do it well. So can you speak to that a little bit, that it is algorithm based, but why does it seem the user experience seems it's more qualitative than quantitative?
Yeah. That's a great question, and I think it's down to what we consider qualitative and quantitative versus what a model is considering. A model is considering trying to get everything into quantitative terms. So a picture, right? You don't think of a picture as math, you think of it as art, or you think of it as, a visual medium. However, they're saying, okay, there's this color in this square. This color has this number corresponding to it. It has this number corresponding to its location. And it multiplies that across the entire picture. And so if it's looking at castles, and I asked it to generate a picture of a castle for a client project that I was doing, and I was thinking about, okay, so it's saying castles are generally this shape. This is a mathematical shape. This is a mathematical formula. I'm creating that. Based on my overall what castles look like, I've created a mathematical shape formula for them. And because she said set it in a meadow, I'm going to my mathematical calculations for what a meadow is, and it's going to show you a meadow that looks like a meadow to you, but it's made up of math for the system.
One pixel at a time. Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
funny. It's like when we went from analog to digital, we pixelated things, and now we're analyzing those
Yeah.
pixels and trying to create something analog again, which is really strange.
It
Well,
is, right?
We're out of time, unfortunately. We'll task Ross with some kind of a last question here, but I would leave you with, and you touched on this just a little bit, is I think where things are going to even get a little bit weirder is there's an awful lot of effort going into robots now, humanoid robots with all the articulation that we have, powered by AI systems, and I think that just adds another layer to the replacement of humans in certain tasks. But I guess it seems to me that the same rules apply. There are going to be things that they're going to be really, really good at. There are probably dangerous jobs or, horribly repetitive jobs, but they're never going to be your brother or your sister or, So anyway, be on the lookout for that. I don't think it's going to be, too many years before you can just go buy a robot for like the price of a car, and it can do your laundry and go pick up your groceries probably. So yeah, we'll do another one.
Yeah.
That'll be part
5
4
years.
of our AI thing. Yeah, Ross, why don't you do your very best to come up with some kind of a last question for us?
Math. Let's see if no. So I've been thinking about this. In your opinion, what would be some of the, because, nobody knows the future, but there's a certain point where we're all going to be able to need to use some of these things, at least to a minimal level, to be
It's like Word,
relevant.
PowerPoint.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the things that the average person should start trying to use to be able to stay relevant and using some of those tools?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and a pretty simple use case that you can just kind of put your feelers out, see what it gives you. Say you're planning a trip and you want to do some research, but it would take you several hours to comb through all these research websites, all these, travel blogs that someone wrote about this place, and just ask, you know what, I am looking to plan a trip that's this long, that's at this location, and I like nature and not many people, and I want to see some historical sites. Give me a 10-day itinerary and see what it gives you. And then give it some feedback. Say, well, you know what? that's not really feasible to do in a day. Or I don't want to spend 4 hours hiking this mountain peak in March because it's going to be too wet and rainy, right? And iterate on that output. And then you can see what it can produce. You can see maybe the areas where it's lacking. And then you can feel a little bit more comfortable asking it something else next time. Thank you.
Well, let's give it up for Faith. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here today. All right, so last week I had shared that we were actually had a few spots left to fill on our calendar. Well, that is no longer the case. We have actually filled out the calendar for the year, which is great, although we would always accept applications for next year. We're already working on that. But so next week we've got some exit planning. Brad Blazik is actually going to be sharing some information on some different exit planning strategies, and I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation too. And so a little bit more of a information sharing session for us. We've got Carbon Convert. Marlo is going to be here on the 15th, and we've got Kayla Thomas with Coach Kayla T on October 22nd. So put these on your calendar, please. As I said, even though our calendar is full, please reach out if you or somebody you would know would like to get on stage. We've already got a few people that said, "Oh, I'm not really ready this year, but next year I'm good to go." So if you know anybody, please reach out and we'll get them slated in. With that, thank you guys all for being here, being part of this conversation, and we'll see you next week.